Now, Florida is the state with the biggest Caribbean population. We have the highest population of not only Cubans, but Haitians and Puerto Ricans and even Bahamians. But did you know that Caribbeans have been making their way to Florida thousands of years ago? So the Taino is a general term that describes our Taino ancestors that first inhabited our greater Antillean islands of the Caribbean. Originally having been migrated out of South America from present-day Venezuela, the Taino is a general term describing the group coming from the Arawakan family. This can be noted from the similarities between the different Arawak dialects spoken throughout the Caribbean and the ancestral practices that could all be traced back to the Arawak of South America. If you look at a map of the Caribbean, the islands serve as like a perfect trail where the Tainos migrated through and dispersed throughout the Caribbean through their canoas or their canoes, which, like many words that we use today, are in fact words that come from the Taino language. Boriquen, Quisqueya, Haiti, Jamaica, Cuba, and the Bahamas are all the native names of the islands where the Tainos were the first to inhabit. Boriquen, Boricua, that's what we call ourselves that. The Tainos of the Bahamas were the first indigenous group that Christopher Columbus encountered when he accidentally discovered the Americas. Oof, I feel bad for those Bahamian Tainos having to deal with that stench. Now, the Taino were able to make their way up to the most northern part of Cuba, which was now La Habana, another Taino name, Havana, and the Bahamas. ¿Quién dijo que no pudieron llegar hasta la Florida? It's right there. And they did. Now, here's where it gets tricky, because we got Native Americans coming from the north, meeting with the Native Americans coming from the south through the Caribbean. The Seminole tribe of Florida, as we know today, come from the Creek Nation that originate all the way back to the Mississippi River, having migrated throughout Alabama, Georgia, and even down to Florida. Seminole is an umbrella term covering many different tribes that have existed throughout Florida, including the Muskogee, the Calusa, and even the Miccosukee tribe, which now reside in the Everglades, bordering the most western part of Broward County, the county I live in. I visited the Miccosukee reservation over there, and learning about the history was truly beautiful. So if you live in South Florida, you should definitely go check out to learn about their history. And then we got the Miami tribe, which were the tribe that resided around present-day Lake Okeechobee, which used to be called Lake Miami, which means big water. This is also what gave the city of Miami its name. Miami, very similar to the Maya in Central America. It was said that the Miami tribe's ancestors came from the Yucatan Peninsula, hence the prefix Maya. See, this is why Florida gets so confusing, because natives were coming from different parts of the continent, meeting in Florida. Now, I started the video off talking about the Taino, the Arawak people originating in South America, traveling throughout the Caribbean, and in fact, they did end up in Florida. Tainos from Cuba left on a journey searching for the Fountain of Youth, which was a Taino legend that there was a spring that restored your youth if you bathed in it somewhere in Bimini, which is present-day Florida, and ended up in Calusa territory in the western part of Florida, and they fell as prisoners under them in the Calusa tribe. But then there was the Tequesta peoples that resided in the southeastern region of Florida, current-day Miami-Dade and Broward County. Often down here, we see a lot of streets and schools which we call Tequesta, but that's only because it's spelled in Spanish. Tequesta is spelled in Spanish with the Q-E-U-E. Q-U-E spells que. Que? They were a small peaceful tribe that settled throughout the Biscayne Bay and around the mouth of the Miami River, as well as up the coastline throughout South Florida, reaching all the way up to Pompano. They relied heavily on marine life, as their diet consisted of fish, shellfish, and even manatee, as manatee, another Taino word, was considered as a delicacy that was served to chiefs and other big leaders. They used shells and shark teeth to create tools and weapons to fish and carve out canoes, very similar to the Tainos of my island, Puerto Rico, Boriquen. So if you're a Caribbean with Taino ancestry and you live in South Florida, or Florida in general, look, we didn't go too far. We took the same path as our Taino ancestors. And before I get the comments saying that the Taino went extinct and no longer exist today, as I always do in all my videos discussing Taino history, take a trip to Puerto Rico or República Dominicana, where many people have a significant amount of Taino DNA. Look around, read the room. The Taino DNA is very much present amongst many people's phenotypes in Puerto Rico, as well as a culture. To learn more about Taino culture within Boriquen, I recommend researching and learning on these creators' pages that I love, and watch this really cool documentary done by Bianca Graulau on her YouTube channel.
Why should we believe the writings the colonizers left behind?